Yasir. So Ammar radiallahu anh did seem to have some criticisms of Uthman's policies. And it is allowed to disagree with the Sahaba on their policies. It's nothing wrong with that. The Sahaba, we don't say anything about their intentions. We don't criticize their loyalty to Allah and His Messenger. But we do not have to agree with their ijtihad about how to run the government, about who to appoint, about their politics, their economics. We don't have to agree. Or we can say, oh, well, that was their ijtihad, and there are others as well. And especially Ammar himself, he has the right to disagree. As a person of the society, as an upright member, as a person who goes back to the beginning of Islam, he has a right to disagree. And he had some complaints about Uthman's policies. And it is said in some of our books that Ammar took with him another Sahabi, Sa'ad most likely ibn Abi Waqqas, and he said, come, let us present our complaints to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Come, let us go and present what we have, complaints to Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is before the rebels are outside. This is way before. This is a few years before. Okay, this is when things are calm in Medina. So they go to the house of Uthman, but the guards are standing outside, or you call them the bawab, the people that are basically the gatekeepers, whoever is going to be, you can't just walk in to the house of the Khalifa, you have to have protection. So you have the secretaries, or not the secretaries, you have the guards, the doorkeepers, whatever they are. And they say, go tell him that Sa'ad and Ammar are at the door. They go inside, and Uthman ibn Affan sends the message, not now, tell them to come at that time, and we'll have the discussion then. Whatever, he was busy at the time, he said, we'll have another meeting with them. So the guards go and tell Sa'ad and Ammar that not now, come back at this time. Sa'ad leaves, Ammar radiallahu anh insists, no, tell him to come right now. I want to meet him right now. And the guard says, he has said, no, it's not going to happen now. Come back on this time and place. And tempers rise, voices are raised, until the guard takes out his stick and hits Ammar to leave. And of course, this is a big blunder. Who are you, O guard, to hit Ammar? Who is Ammar and who are you? This was a big blunder. And this was a mistake, and there is no question that the gatekeeper or the guard went beyond what he should have done. This incident, which has been narrated in our books, if you look at the equivalents in Shia histories, you will be amazed. The references in those books are that Ammar was whipped and tortured by the guards of Uthman, that Ammar's entrails and intestines were on the floor out of the whipping, that he fell into a coma for days because of this brutal whipping. And the reality is, nothing like this happened. There was a kernel of tension, and that tension was indeed the result of complaints that Ammar had. And those complaints, unfortunately, a beat was had on the back of Ammar. And when the complaints came back to Uthman from the rebels, and they complained that you have mistreated Ammar, what did Uthman ibn Affan say? He said, that was something my guards did without my command, nor even my pleasure. I never wanted them to do this. And if Ammar insists, here is my back, I give it to him for qisas. Like, you can hit me as well. That you're right, that should not have happened. And if Ammar wants his right back, even though I didn't command it, even though I'm not happy at it, but if Ammar insists, here's my back, tell him. I mean, who are you to complain on behalf of Ammar, right? And Ammar obviously did not want that to happen. And in fact, and here's the point here, that I think if you're honest, it's always the best. When you look at our books of history, there's no question, in my opinion, that Ammar radiallahu anh had some points of criticism about Uthman's policies. But Ammar had nothing to do with the rebels. I mean, I can disagree with you without wanting to harm you. Right? I can disagree with some of your policies without wanting you to be killed. And when the rebels surrounded the house of Uthman, Ammar was of those who criticized the rebels. And in fact, it is narrated that at the end of the siege, as we'll come to next week inshallah, at the end of the siege, when the rebels cut off even water being delivered to the house of Uthman, And we'll explain the story and why and how and why did nobody intervene. That will be next week, inshaAllah ta'ala. When the rebels cut off water being delivered, it was Ammar who stood up in the masjid and said, this was a man who purchased Bi'r Ruma for the Sahaba to drink water from. And now you stop him from getting a glass of water. So it was Ammar who criticized the rebels for laying the siege to Uthman. How then can you flip it around as the other group does and claim that Ammar was on the side of the rebels? So honesty is the best policy. Yes, there were some slight tensions between Ammar and Uthman, but Ammar never rejected the Khilafah of Uthman. You don't have to agree with every policy. You have the right to criticize, right? How many of us, we might even like a particular person, but we don't agree with each and everything that he does. This is human nature, isn't it? You don't have to agree with everything. And sometimes you might even raise your voices. Abu Bakr and Umar had their minor issues between each other, as I mentioned. But in the end of the day, they were friends and they were helpers of one another. So here is one of those things that happen. And again, the other side makes it into such a big issue and the whole narrative is created that really is completely exaggerated.